Hello everybody, it's Chris Bezanoy, or Chris B, with CSB Security Inc. and another informative video. Today we're going to talk about Health Canada RMIs, or Requests for More Information, post October 17th, 2019. What I'm about to tell you is based on my experience over the past 5 years dealing with Health Canada RMIs, helping people get licensed. We've performed over 75 hosted video attestations thus far, but it is my opinion, your opinions and experiences may vary. A little bit of a history. Under the MMPR, Health Canada used to do what's called PLIs, pre-license inspections. And they used to send reviewers out to sites to review the compliance of the site, and they would issue a license based on the reviewer and what they saw. Move forward to the ACMPR, Health Canada eventually decided that, you know what, it's up to the applicant to prove to us. You have to give us your evidence package. And that included pictures, documentation, maybe a hosted video tour, whatever it is included, you had to send that to Health Canada. They would issue you a license without ever stepping foot on site. And we're talking your initial license. Under the new Cannabis Act, nothing's changed. In fact, the evidence package becomes even more important. And I'm finding in the past year or so, the RMIs back from Health Canada, based on a review of somebody's attestation or evidence package, have varied. They've gotten easier to answer, but also more complicated. In other words, Health Canada is learning that most people know what they're doing now. They've hired consultants to help them navigate through the licensing process, but there are still things that they're unsure of. So this video is going to talk about Health Canada RMIs, the top things you need to be mindful of, and why you may want to engage a consultant to help you answer those questions. So these are in no particular order, but there are 5 points that I want you to be mindful of when answering RMIs from Health Canada, and of course the most common RMIs that I've seen. Number 1 on the list is RMIs where Health Canada will ask for clarification on something. In other words, you would submit your evidence package and all your documentation that goes along with it. Now you have to be fully built out, so you hand them your HVAC plans, your building plans, your security design, you've done your hosted video tour, everything you've needed, you've submitted that. Health Canada's come back with a number of questions. Some of those questions may be pretty straightforward. Some of them may be what we call leading questions, which I'll get to in another section of this video. But most often than not, you will notice that Health Canada will come back and say, please explain how you're compliant with Section ABC of the cannabis regulations in your dry room. And most of our clients and people that I've noticed before panic when they see that type of question because the assumption is you are non-compliant. It doesn't mean that you're non-compliant. It doesn't mean that Health Canada thinks, oh boy, I don't like this at all. Please explain how you're compliant and you better smarten up and fix it and tell us how you're fixing it. Otherwise, you don't get a license. That is not necessarily always the case. Health Canada asks for clarification when A, you haven't been very clear as to what's happening in that room to begin with your evidence package. B, maybe you didn't articulate your first round of answers for their RMIs and they're still a little confused. C, they haven't seen it before and they just want to make sure that it is compliant and they want you to explain it. Or D, they did find something they didn't like, but they won't come right out and tell you. They're just going to ask you how you're compliant. Don't have a knee-jerk reaction to think that you're always wrong. There are different ways of solving things. There are different ways of being compliant with the regulations. It doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means you have to either fight back with Health Canada to say, hey, here's the answer. Give in to what they say and go, okay, we see what you're getting at. We'll go ahead and fix it and we'll resend all the information. But most often than not, you're probably already compliant. Don't panic when you see that kind of question. They're just asking for clarification. They're not saying that you are wrong or non-compliant. See it all the time. So that's number 1. Number 2 is I'm going to call them leading questions and how you answer those questions. So Health Canada will come back and say, again, please explain how you're compliant with subsection A, B, and C of the cannabis regulations in this room. And if you're not sure exactly what they're getting at, sometimes your answer back will cause them to ask another 5 questions. I see it all the time, and I call them leading questions. It's not saying that Health Canada is purposely doing it so that you fall victim to their ever-ending questions. It's just to say that they had to clarify something first before they asked you a few more questions. So the trick is, in those RMIs that come back, if it looks like it's getting somewhere but you're not sure where, reach out to a consultant. Because more often than not, if you don't answer the RMI properly, you may think you did and give them the answer, and all of a sudden you get another 5 questions back. And those are more serious questions with bigger impact than the original question. So, number 2 on the list is leading questions. Know the regulations. Know what Health Canada is getting at when they ask you a question. Head it off at the pass. The way you answer could answer 5 questions that could come back, or answer none of them. The third thing that I notice in most common RMIs are missing devices on your floor plans. In other words, you send them a security as-built drawing that shows all the device locations on a floor plan. You also send me your intrusion logs or your access control logs or your video surveillance exports. They will compare the two. So if they're not, if the devices aren't labeled properly or they don't match what's in the intrusion detection log with what's on the drawing, they will flag that as a concern. Especially missing devices. So you could have, let's say, 5 devices inside of a flower room, and maybe there's a few door contacts on emergency exit doors that show up on the intrusion log, but they're not on your drawings. Maybe vice versa. Maybe they're on the drawings but not on your intrusion detection log. Health Canada will ask for clarification, and you may end up having to redo some of your attestation documents because you didn't show them to begin with. So do yourself a favor, walk around your facility, get your security contractor to walk around. We walk around whenever we do an attestation. We just make sure the floor plans match the devices that have been installed, the device labels match the floor plans, and the intrusion, access control, or video surveillance exports. Nonetheless, drawings need to match. The fourth thing is basically how you are articulating your cannabis present areas. So Health Canada has come back before in RMIs and said, please explain if cannabis will be present in this room. Seems like a pretty straightforward question, but is it? So here's an example. Health Canada has come back and said, is your denaturing destruction area a cannabis present room? Is your loading dock a cannabis present room? And you sit there and think, okay, well, is it a cannabis present room? Well, sure, cannabis is going to be traveling through that loading dock. So, yes, it is a cannabis present room. And you may find Health Canada will come back and say, okay, great, please explain how you're compliant with the regulations for a cannabis present room. In other words, maybe you don't have a fully sealed floor. We're talking epoxy or some other approved substance for sealing a floor. Because you told me it was a cannabis present room. But if you don't tell them it's a cannabis present room, well, they'll sit there and go, we don't believe you. You're doing denaturing in this room, so technically it is a cannabis present room. It is a tricky situation because each reviewer may have a different opinion on what a cannabis present room is. If you answer Health Canada by saying, yes, my denaturing area is a cannabis present room, did you tell them that potentially it's a cannabis storage room? Because you're not going to be denaturing every day. Cannabis could be stored overnight in that room, and now it's a secured storage room that's also a denaturing room. Be careful of what you tell Health Canada is a cannabis present room, or an operations room, or a secured storage room. So often I find that some drawings are labeled with misleading labels. In other words, supply storage. I see that all the time, and that's fantastic. That's telling Health Canada there's a supply room in our facility. It's for supplies. It makes total sense. I've seen drawings that are not as clear, where they say secured storage. Okay, great. It's secured storage. But they didn't say it's secured storage for supplies. Big difference. No cannabis in that room. It is a secured storage for supplies, but is it a true secured storage in the way of Health Canada interpreting what a secured storage space is? So you got to be very careful with what you dictate on your floor plans and what you tell Health Canada is the cannabis present area. If they come back with a question asking you if it is an area, make sure you evaluate whether or not it truly is. Is it cannabis present? Cannabis in transit? Cannabis always there? Cannabis sometimes there? And does it need to be a cannabis present area? Reach out to your consultants to find out, because what you answer in that RMI could change what you need to do to that room. And the fifth thing I would honestly say is one of the most common RMIs we see back is anything to do with GPP related. I'm not going to say GMP. Health Canada really doesn't do the whole GMP thing. They do the GPP thing. And it's more around SOPs. How are you washing down? Please demonstrate how you can wash down your HVAC, which, by the way, is a new thing under a guidance document Health Canada recently released. They often ask about GPP compliance. Cannabis flow. How are you moving through your facility? How are you washing down your walls? How are you sanitizing this room? Where are your lavatories? Where is potentially your sanitation stations? And so Health Canada really wants to know the GPP compliance of your facility. Most often I see RMIs come back with the GPP compliance of a facility. Gowning areas. What kind of gowns? How are you gowning? What SOPs have been written? Maybe the floor plans aren't as clear as where cannabis will be coming in and where it's going to be exiting. Maybe there is a room that you want to get licensed, but you didn't notice that maybe it's not really epoxy coated, which it should be. Maybe you thought it was fully sealed, but Health Canada didn't understand and you didn't give them any specification sheets on the coating you used for your floor. So yes, they come back with GPP. Yes, they come back for security. Again, as my very first point, doesn't mean you're non-compliant. It just means I see a lot in security and GPP. And more often than not, I see GPP over security. Make sure you reach out to your QA people, your consultants, say, hey, they've asked a question about GPP. I'm not quite sure what they're getting at. I thought it was pretty clear, but potentially it's not. What didn't we show them? What is it they're asking? What is it they're leading to? But almost always, I see more GPP-related questions than I do security-related questions. And of course, that depends on what consultants you hire, how you articulate in your evidence package, what you show Health Canada, what you prepare before you send it, how compliant you are. But it also depends on the reviewer and how they understood your evidence package. Doesn't mean you were wrong, just meant maybe you missed something, maybe the reviewer misunderstood. And yes, it does happen. Some reviewers will go out and they'll see an awesome facility where you can focus in on somebody's face at a fence line and they think, this is great. This is CSI type stuff. And they almost expect it moving forward. It doesn't mean you have to do it because that's the reviewer thinking that it should be done. Doesn't mean it has to be done. Nonetheless, RMIs are a big point. Request for more information. Once you hand in your video evidence package, they will come back with questions. Make sure you reach out to your consultants. Make sure you know where they're getting at. Make sure you're compliant. Make sure you fight back when you're supposed to and give in when it's a little easier to do so. Once again, it's Chris Besnoy, CSB Security Inc. Another informative video has been updated for post October 17, 2019. Hope this video was informative. We'll see you in the next one.